What subtle edge cases can break your API endpoints? Imagine building an API that works perfectly most of the time, but then a tiny, unexpected input causes it to crash or behave badly. That's what happens with subtle edge cases. These are the little things that slip through your usual tests but can cause big problems in real life. When designing and testing API endpoints, these edge cases often come from unusual inputs, tricky usage patterns, or complex integrations. Knowing about them helps you make your backend more reliable and easier to work with. For example, when users send data that almost fits the expected format but has tiny issues, like extra spaces, odd Unicode characters, or special symbols, your API might choke. These inputs can cause parsing errors or even security vulnerabilities. Numeric fields at their limits, like 0, negative numbers, or huge integers, can overflow or trigger logic errors if not handled carefully. Missing optional parameters or null values can lead to null reference errors if your code doesn't check for them. Sending the wrong data types, like a string instead of a number, can cause validation failures that you might not anticipate. Empty data, such as an empty list or missing JSON fields, can also cause trouble if your API doesn't handle these cases gracefully. Headers or authentication tokens might be absent, leading to silent failures or confusing error messages. When it comes to pagination, requesting 0 items, the maximum allowed, or more than the limit can reveal flaws in your logic, like off-by-one errors, which can cause missing data or duplicated responses. Concurrency issues are another subtle problem. Multiple requests trying to modify the same resource at once can create inconsistent states if your backend doesn't use proper locking or transactions. Repeatedly polling an endpoint for updates might expose timing issues or stale data if caching isn't managed well. Error handling gaps can also cause trouble. If your API doesn't properly send error codes for rare failures, clients might retry unnecessarily or get confused. Unexpected server exceptions can lead to generic 500 internal server errors without useful messages. Third-party API failures can cascade if your fallback mechanisms aren't solid. Security is another area where tiny oversights matter. Partial permission checks might let users access data they shouldn't. Input variations, like encoded characters, can bypass naive sanitization, opening the door for injection attacks. Schema validation issues can crop up if your JSON or Excel doesn't match the expected format exactly. Slight differences in case sensitivity or field order can break strict validation rules. Rate limits are another tricky spot. Sending requests right at the limit or in bursts can cause inconsistent throttling or unexpected rejections. Time zones, locales, and character encodings can also trip up your endpoints. Different date formats or time zones might cause incorrect calculations or parsing errors. Character encoding mismatches can corrupt data or cause failures in reading inputs. When your API depends on other APIs, small failures in one can cascade into larger issues if you haven't handled transactions or rollbacks properly. To prevent these problems, it's smart to create test cases that cover these subtle scenarios. Use tools to simulate difficult inputs or failures in dependent systems. Always validate inputs thoroughly, especially boundary values and unusual formats. Document error codes clearly so clients know what's happening. Use transactions and locking to keep data consistent. Test your rate limiting and performance under boundary conditions. Keeping your API well documented helps everyone understand expected behaviors and error responses. By thinking about these tiny, often overlooked edge cases and testing for them, you can build APIs that are more stable and easier to maintain. This makes your backend development clearer and helps prevent surprises when your API goes live.